Well. You must want to know 5 mistakes to avoid when starting out wholesaling. Well, you've come to the right place. Keep watching as I share my tips 1 through 5 that you should avoid when wholesaling. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new, welcome back. If you're true, I'm Dara, real estate investor, entrepreneur, and consultant out of Atlanta, Georgia. And I am jumping right into my 5 tips to avoid when starting out wholesaling. Tip number 5, and this is a tip for wholesaling, of course, but also just life in general. Do not make promises that are out of your control. For example, a lot of wholesalers who come across properties that are occupied by tenants make a promise such as, yeah, the tenants will be out by closing. Well, if I'm a cash buyer who can close in 3 days, who's able and willing to close in 3 days, how are you gonna get them out in 3 days? You wanna avoid making promises such as that. Or here's another example of something that may just be out of your control. If you have a property that's not occupied, it's a vacant property that you put on a lockbox, you put the key in the lockbox, and you had buyers go see it outside of you being there, and somebody misplaced the key, threw the key, took it, whatever the case is, and there's no key in the lockbox. So unless you have a copy or access to the homeowner's copy or something where you are in control, don't make a promise such as, oh yeah, the key will be back at this time. Tip number 4 on a mistake to avoid is to not let buyers walk away from a deal without getting feedback. So here's an example. You have a property and maybe you have an open house type of showing or whatever the case is, where buyers who were once interested went to go see the property and all of a sudden are like, oh yeah, you know what, I'm okay. I just really advise you to get feedback from every buyer who was once interested and is no longer interested, because that feedback helps you negotiate or renegotiate with the homeowner. For instance, someone might have been interested in your house. They were so eager to go see it. And they're like, no, we're going to pass. Don't let that be your, okay, well, thanks. I'll catch you on the next one. Be like, okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Or what was it about the house that makes you want to pass? Now, what about it are you no longer interested in? And then they'll tell you, oh yeah, well, this has foundation issues. I don't want properties with foundation issues. Just always get feedback, because then you can take that foundation issue to the homeowner and say, yeah, well, I had one of my inspectors or one of my partners go check it out, and this is something that I didn't notice, the first go around, but that foundation issue will actually cost a lot more than we anticipated. So because of that, we got to get the price at a lower number. So always use the feedback from buyers to be ammo for your negotiations with your sellers. And an extra bonus with this tip number 4 to always get feedback from buyers is to always follow up with your buyers. Don't assume or don't put the ball in their court like, oh, John Buyer said he was going to go see the house today and call me back or email me or get back with me tonight. Don't rely on John Buyer to get back with you tonight. You follow up with John Buyer as long as it takes until you get that feedback, until you get a no because answer. Hope that makes sense. Moving right along. Tip number 3 to avoid is to not have an out clause in your contract. What do I mean by that? I have been burned before and have lost earnest money due to a weak contract. A contract that I thought I had wiggle room out of, but completely did not. So because of that, I wasn't able to close a deal or get a buyer for a deal that I had with the homeowner, and at the end of the day, lost money. And that's something you just don't want to do whether you're starting out or not. Don't lose earnest money because of a weak contract. So make sure you tighten up your contracts and have a clause, any kind of out clause, so that you are able to retrieve your earnest money in the event that you cannot close on the deal. So what are some examples of out clauses? You can definitely make sure that if you have anything stating earnest money, you have an inspection period and you work your butt off during that inspection period to try to get the deal sold. If you can't back out within that inspection period, that's one way. Another out clause is to have contingencies such as partner approval or something along those lines. So this deal is contingent upon the approval of my partner. And so if your partner doesn't approve, then you're able to back out and receive your earnest money back. But most importantly, no matter what the out clause is, it's most important that your paragraph in your contract about earnest money spells that out. So who is the holder of the earnest money? How are they to release the earnest money in scenarios X, Y, and Z? And you always want to make sure that the money can come back to you in the event that the deal does not go through. Tip number 2, mistake number 2 to avoid as a wholesaler starting out is to not be desperate. Now, this is a twofold tip. So the first portion of this don't be desperate tip is don't be desperate with homeowners. So always act as if you do not need this deal. That's a negotiation strategy. Do not be so desperate or in need of just this one deal that you're willing to do any and everything to get it done, because you have to act as though you don't need this deal. You can move on to the next one. This is my offer. This is what it is. Take it or leave it, period. So don't be so desperate with the homeowner. And then most importantly, or more importantly, don't be desperate with buyers. So my very first deal, I literally took the first offer I got. Boy, was I so happy. I was so happy. It was a full price offer that a couple days later I got him to go up because there was such high demand on this offer that I was able to get him a little bit higher. But the issue with me taking the very first offer that I got was that there was so much demand on this property, on this deal, that it essentially could have really caused a highest and best bidding war situation. Now, disclaimer, there are a lot of cash buyers, including myself, who are not okay with being put in bidding wars and highest and best situations. But the tip essentially is to don't be so desperate to go with the first offer you get if it's a deal that's in high demand. If it's a deal that you have in high demand, there is going to be a higher offer. I'm not saying to start or cause a bidding war, but if it's just simple supply and demand. I always give my buyers in a situation like this, I always give them the right to either adjust their offer or withdraw their offer. So, hey, buyer A, I got another offer at the exact same offer as yours. If you really want it, just let me know the best you can do. Hey, buyer B, got the exact same offer as yours. If you really want this deal, give me the best offer you can give me. The last and final tip, the last and final mistake to avoid, tip number 1 is to not get backdoored. Do not lose out on a deal because somebody wanted to be a snake or be sneaky and take a deal away from you by going behind your back and getting it from the seller directly. Now, there are several ways to protect yourself from something like this happening. I, thankfully, knock on wood, have never had this happen to me where I got backdoored and lost a deal that way. So I personally have not done these things that I'm about to tell you to protect yourself, but you should do it so that you are playing offense, not defense. You're being proactive, not retroactive or reactive. So a couple ways to protect yourself from getting backdoored is to have your buyer sign a non-disclosure or a non-compete agreement so that, yes, I'm giving you this information. Here's the address. I never give sellers information, but they can obviously look that stuff up themselves. But here's the address. You are assuring me by signing this agreement that you will not go around me and compete with me to get this deal. You will go through me to get this deal for this price that I'm asking, or the price that we agree on. That's one way. Another way is to file a memorandum of contract at the courthouse. So whatever county the property is in, you file a memorandum of contract at the courthouse, which simply allows you, if you have equitable interest in the sale of this property, then that means that you have put a cloud on the title and that this property cannot be sold to someone else besides you without you being compensated. So those are 2 different ways to protect yourself from getting backdoored. Hasn't happened to me, but I think that's a very vital tip for those who are starting out newly to know. So just to recap, the 5 mistakes to avoid when starting out wholesaling, whether you're honestly just starting out or you've been in it for a while. Tip number 5 is to be sure not to make promises that are out of your control. Tip number 4 is to not let your buyers walk away or back out of a deal without giving you feedback as to why they are no longer interested. Tip number 3 is to have an out clause in your contract that allows you to retrieve your earnest money back in the event that you can't close the deal. Tip number 2 is to not be desperate. Don't be desperate with homeowners Always act as if this deal does not make or break you, and do not be desperate with buyers. Don't be so eager to go with the very first offer you get if the deal is in high demand. And lastly, tip number 1, don't get backdoored. Don't get swindled out of a deal from a sneaky buyer, and always protect yourself. There you have it, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end of this video. I hope that you gained something from these 5 tips that I shared. Trust me and believe me that these are not the only mistakes that you should avoid. I may come back with a part 2 of this video. But hey, let me know in the comments if you are a wholesaler who is experienced, or if you've gone through some rough patches and you got some war scars. Leave a comment down below. What are some tips that you think that other wholesalers should avoid? Also, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with all your wholesaler friends, subscribe to my channel, and hey, if you like this shirt of mine, look down in the description box below on how you can order yours as well. Need more help getting started with wholesaling? The link to consult with me is down below. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.